Okay, it's 5:30 p.m. Where I find myself in Alsace, and we're the 1st of December 2022, and I've just worked for about 1 hour to prepare a video about logic and cheese. I will probably call this a cheesy lecture on logic. And yeah, so I want to talk about cheese. But first I don't know when the video will be published. It might take a few days, yeah. So, but here we are the 1st of December when I record this video. And I will start by the formal aspect. I improve intellectually every day because every experience that I encounter forces me to reconsider my worldview. Therefore, if you watch other videos from me, or if you have watched other videos from me, I'm not saying that they get better over time, but I keep changing, I keep evolving, and usually the most recent, they are the fruit of all the previous ones, namely, they are the most, not necessarily the best, but maybe the most mature intellectually, either because I learn new data, I take a relative amount of time each day to read books, which I interpret differently and it broadens my perspective, or simply because I am able over time to express my thoughts, which are very complex, in a more intelligible way, in a more simple way, in a more detached way, detached from a very rigorous, too rigorous aspect. So the purpose of this lecture on cheese and logic is to make very complex thoughts intelligible, and I have decided that I would follow a pattern, a broad structure. These are the table board that I will try to show in most or all my videos as long as I publish videos in these conditions. But I nonetheless improvise in a sense that I understand that people expect a little bit of, how do you call it, spontaneity, but I try to find a proper balance between order and spontaneity without sacrificing neither one nor the other. So that's my current method. Yeah. Also, I have decided, as long as I publish video, I will put the links to the 3 or 4, maybe 5 latest videos which have been published. So I will edit this at the moment when I publish the video, so that people can follow at least the recent progression of the development of my thoughts. Yeah. Where's the cheese? We are hungry. No. It's a theoretical lecture, but here's the cheese. I mean, there is a way more, but that's just to illustrate. But now I will take a few minutes to express not ideas about cheese and logic, but my recent development, the kind of ideas in the ordinary sense that I've understood recently. And first, yeah, what I want to say is that when people publish videos on YouTube or when they speak publicly, there's something which is very frustrating, is that we do not know what they know, what is their worldview, how they envision reality. So that's why I will show, not successively, but all along the video, I will show what I call my documents, which are simply a very simplified formal structure of reality. And here is the movement of what I call spirit, namely the intellectual life of the United States of America, but actually it's the intellectual life of the Western world at large, and actually it's the intellectual life of the world. These are the categories which structure the political, intellectual, and cultural life of predominantly the US, but actually every single Western country. I will not comment. If you are vaguely smart, you can understand. The idea here in the broader sense is that each determination is in connection with the other. That's the symbol of the yin and yang. A Democrat is a Democrat to the extent that it's not a Republican, and vice versa. Males and females, they are different, but they are united nonetheless. Masculinity and femininity, etc., etc. And each determination brings about the other. And over the past decades, in the chronological perspective, the predominant determinations of the intellectual, cultural, and political life of the Western world have been on the side of Democrats and liberals, and there is a reaction the modern day, with the advent and the widespread of the internet, there's what is called sometimes the rise of populism, or the red pill, or the far right. It's simply bringing back balance by, how should I put it? People tend to, mostly overwhelmingly white people, tend to adopt in the Western world. Right now it's quantitatively limited, but to adopt these kind of values to counterbalance the excesses of the left, to try to bring balance. This is the process, the movement of spirit, very simplified. And just to illustrate, someone like Jordan Peterson, a very famous intellectual, he defends masculinity, he talks about IQ, he's in favor of free speech and individualism, a return to order, conservative traditionalist value. He doesn't talk too much about sociology and economics, but he's rather on the side of the middle class and the working class. He has become famous through the social media. He's not a nationalist, but he could consider to be a Western patriot, one might say, etc., etc. It's really a simplified presentation of the life, the intellectual, cultural, and spiritual life of spirit. But actually there's only one spirit, which takes an infinite varieties of shapes and forms, but these are the categories really simplified to show the broad picture. If it can help the person who stumbled upon this video to situate himself or herself and to understand that the opposites are mutually, reciprocally determining one another, it can help. And peace and stability and balance is in the middle. The example that I can take, that I've been thinking about, is that anti-racism is epistemologically wrong. I mean, it's simply absurd to say that there are no races. It's also morally wrong, because here are, for people who are familiar with the intellectual life of the Western world, the anti-racist, they can be usually anti-white or anti-Asian with their affirmative action aimed against Asian and against white. And it brings about frustration and a counter-reaction, which brings about racism, the form of the alt-right, or the accusation, Mr. Trump, your dinner with Mr. Fuentes, for instance, that has been recent. There's a reaction, and the truth is neither on the left nor on the right, although the truth is the process of going from left to right, like a pendulum swing, but the real truth, I might say, is in the middle. That would be race realism, namely if people were able to speak rationally, calmly, in a dispassionate way about the racial differences which are inherent in mankind, if people of all origins, of all intellectual backgrounds, although it requires a certain amount of intelligence, education and culture, but if intelligent people could speak dispassionately, calmly, together about the question of race, they would acknowledge that humans beings differ in terms of ethnic differences, and this would stabilize and pacify the situation. But it's easier said than done, because when people are prevented from expressing themselves, it brings about a lot of frustration, which explains why there is a revival of racism and the far right. That's just an illustration, and it's true for all these determinations. The truth, the stability is in the middle, but it's difficult to find stability precisely because an excess on one side brings about, in a dialectical fashion, an attempt to restore the balance on the other side. Yeah. That's what I have to say. Also, what I've understood recently, I mean, I've understood this a long time ago, but I can formulate this more clearly. When people talk on the internet, consciously, they might think that they talk to their followers or their subscribers, or to an audience that they are trying to seduce, to reach. I have not this problem, because I have, as of now, I have very few subscribers and almost no consistent followers, although there's one or two people who have been leaving comments, so thank you. But I've understood that people do not understand that actually they speak potentially to everyone. It becomes the information which is being shared on the internet becomes the public property of mankind. That's why to talk to any other publicly means to talk potentially to every other. It can bring about the problem of political correctness and hypocrisy. We have to be very careful not to offend anyone, or simply to realize that there is one community of consciousness, the global village. And the proper balance is to express the truth, not by trying to please anyone, that would be hypocrisy, but to speak a truth which is intelligible potentially to everyone. That's why I have talked, and I still do, and I intend to talk about the categories. The categories are the universal determination of the mind. I will illustrate this with cheese. But now I will show the categories. Because here's in a diplomatic, peaceful way, that's not always the case, because I have mood shifts, but science, in the broadest sense, science is that which is universal, namely that which is valid for all, and every thinking agent ought to agree, not necessarily on all scientific findings, because science is a process in constant evolution, but at least on the principle of science, namely every intelligent person ought to agree that science is what enables everyone to agree. And here's a working tool, UPS, Universal Particular Singular. Human beings are singular individuals, they are fully determined, they are concrete, they are existing real individuals, they have particularities which are inherent, ethnic origin, gender, age, level of intelligence, economic status, sociological role, country of origin, country of citizenship, religion, etc., etc. These are particularities, and the universal would be the universal mind. It could be envisioned as being God in a way, and humans, they differ singularly and particularly. There are oppositions and tensions between the genders, between the ethnic groups, between the social classes, between the countries, between everyone eventually. But on a universal level, everyone has to agree, because there is only one universal, only one truth. But the truth is not living God knows where in the sky. It's a process of unfolding, and this is what happens on the internet. I will not talk about the internet too long, because I intend to talk about this in another video, but that's what I could say very briefly. Also, okay, it's been 12 minutes. I do not edit my video. I used to do this, but just for the sake of not wasting time and to be more honest. I'm spontaneous. I'm honest. I make no editing. It's like a woman who wears no makeup. Don't wear makeup. You are beautiful the way you are. If you are beautiful, of course. But yeah, so I will share the books that I used to share, and I still do. I share the books, and I do not read these books thoroughly, because I do not have enough time to read all the books, all the interesting books that I have in my library. But I apply their teachings. So these are books about how to run one's own life by making supplies. These are books about the educational system in the United States of America, problems with the educational system. People do not need to buy the books. They can just look at the references on the internet, and they will notice that there are problems with the educational system in the US, but that would be here a particular situation, a particular type of country, or a particular branch of the social organization, but there are also problems in the French educational system. And I'm sure I can deduce that the same goes in England, Scotland, Canada, Australia, Germany, Spain and Italy, and eventually in most countries, because for inherent reasons, the educational system, when it is organized according to socialist policies, I've been reading this book recently, it brings about negative consequences. So here, an example of UPS. Particular could be Western civilization, and there are problems with the educational system in France, the US, Germany, England, etc. That's an illustration. Or the universal could be socialist mode of organizing the social life, the particular branches of the of the social life, that would be the healthcare system, the educational system, retirement pension system, public property, roads, railways, etc. And the singular would be the singular educational system of the US, of France, Germany, etc., etc. And the determinations of the universal are contained in the particular and in each singular. Yeah. So, yeah. Also, bullshit jobs. It is becoming widespread that a lot of jobs in post-industrial societies, like modern Western societies have become, are useless. People are wasting their life working jobs they hate so that they can buy shit they don't need. That's from Fight Club. That's a recurrent feature of modern societies. A lot of people have bullshit jobs. They have to earn a living, I understand, but their job is pointless, and in the grand vision of the totality, it's often counterproductive in terms of waste of time, pollution, social parasitism, counter-efficiency, etc. I will develop more later. Problems about the welfare state, and an illustration also. My introduction is very long, so if you are interested in the logic of cheese, be patient. Yeah, these kind of books, they come from America. This is what I call American common sense, and they are translated, not literally, it's not a translation, but the spirit which inspires these books, it's also present in a book like this. It's a little bit more, it's more of a prepper type. Here it's more common sense, here it's more a prepper, but Mr. San Giorgio has had the idea of introducing American ideas in continental Europe, and it has brought a lot of economic success, and this is an illustration of how ideas circulate through public means of communication. They can circulate very fast. If you watch this video, if you have never heard about the French educational system, you can now know that basically it's as bad, probably worse than in the US. Yeah, that's what I had to say. Now, other books that I have bought recently. I haven't read these books, and I haven't ordered these books on Amazon. I no longer do this. Now I buy my books at a local bookstore to favor and encourage local businesses. So these are the kind of books that I will not read them, because maybe I will skip through the book, use them to make lectures in French, or to talk to people about the situation in the French language. And I intend to give these books, but I bought them nonetheless, to skip. Here's an ecological French author getting out of consumer society. That's the problem of consumerism from a kind of a radical ecological standpoint, but a conservative ecologist, not a liberal virtue-signaling ecologist. He's really an intelligent, conservative ecologist, so he's a leftist, but with a right-wing, common-sense view, one might say. Bon pour la casse means let's send this to the trash disposal facility, maybe. Planned obsolescence. That's just another example. Whoever you are, wherever on the planet, if you watch this, you can know, you can check on the internet or become aware, not necessarily of this book, but of planned obsolescence, and you can discover that a lot of the majority of objects which are being produced in modern societies, they are specifically designed to break down, which brings about problems in making these objects in terms of consumption, energy, pollution. Then they break down, so it's a waste of money. Then you have to buy the project again. So the big factories, the big companies, they make a lot of money. The people, they have to work stupid jobs in order to buy stuff which break down, etc. That's a universal problem. In modern economies, a lot of objects are made specifically to break down, so they are not reliable. It brings about pollution, a waste of time for the production of these objects, which could be made way more sustainable, and a waste of money, etc. That's a universal problem. Yeah. The death of private life. So we live in an age where private life is vanishing in a way. That's why everything becomes public, more or less. That's an age of revelation. Yeah, people are scared about this. I can understand why. But on a personal level, I have shared almost all my information about myself from a psychological, psychoanalytical, empirical, personal perspective. Not because I enjoy this, but because I try to be honest in a way. Junk food. That's about the junk food industry. That's a book written in French, but that's a universal problem. In all developed societies, there is junk food, which is not very nutritive. It brings about diseases, it brings about pollution with the plastic, the transformation, it brings about obesity, all sorts of problems, and people can become aware of these problems wherever they find themselves if they have the time and the leisure. Here's a book about the revolt of the working class in the French society. I know that these kind of books, they are to be found in England. Mr. Paul Embury wrote some sort of the same kind of book, Despised. He's a fire brigade person, red hair, fire brigade Anglo-Saxon who wrote, I haven't read his book and I haven't read this book either, but I know that they are broadly the same kind of books. They talk about the decline of the working class in the Western world. They are the same books in Germany, in America, and usually these are from conservative leftists. Most leftists in the modern Western world, they are not conservative, precisely, they are liberal, but these are conservative leftists. These are intelligent books usually. How to learn how to sleep. If people read this kind of book, you spend 20 euros or $20 in a book like this. You read the book during one evening or one afternoon, and then for the rest of your life, as long as you can live, you will sleep better, you will spare a lot of money because you will not have to buy sleeping pills, you will be in better health, you will have a better mood. This kind of information are becoming widespread on the internet. Anyone who wants to improve his life, his mood, his sleeping patterns, can buy these kind of books or watch even free videos on the internet. Other illustration, I bought this book, The Light Within Us. What's the official title in English? The Light We Carry, yeah, from Michelle Obama. It's just to illustrate. I'm not a Democrat, but it's just to illustrate that the ideas of the intellectual life. I'm not sure that it's a good book. This is not the kind of books that I used to read, but it contains wisdom nonetheless, probably. Yeah, this just to illustrate that we live in an age where the intellectual life of any country which has an intellectual life is available for anyone, anywhere on the planet. That's why I think I know a lot about the intellectual and spiritual life of the United States of America and of France and partly of every Western country without ever having set foot on American soil, because all the data, all the information is made available. So yeah, I will read parts of this book. I like the title. Yeah. A book about survival and adventure by a member of the Special Air Service, the British SAS. Apparently it's a world bestseller. I will not use this book because I'm partly disabled, so I'm not a Rambo, but I will skip through the book and then I will give it away, like most of the other books that I've just talked about. And finally, this book, it's by a French journalist, which would be classified alt-right. He's not a politician, but he's kind of a right-wing, but it's just to illustrate Mr. Oberton. He's broadly from the same generation as I am. I think he's in his 30s, but it's just to illustrate that this author, Mr. Oberton, is a French author, but who has imported American ideas. In a sense here, American ideas mean modern socio-biological science, and also partly libertarian ideas, but here it's really the up-to-date modern science which is being developed in the Anglo-Saxon world, predominantly in the US, but also in England. And he has imported these brand new ideas in the French context, where ideas about sociobiology, they are completely alien, because France is a Marxist country. Intellectually, everyone almost is a Marxist in modern France. There are historical, sociological reasons to explain this. I will not talk about this, but it's just to illustrate that this person, Mr. Oberton, is some sort of is a French person as a citizenship and from a historical perspective, but he has downloaded the modern science, which is predominantly Anglo-Saxon, but science by its very nature is universal, but it's a particular type of country which produce the up-to-date modern science, and these are predominantly the Anglo-Saxon countries. So he's an example of a completely new perspective on reality within the French society, but it's just to illustrate that anyone who has the intelligence, he's very intelligent, the leisure, that's not his hobby, he's a journalist, a professional journalist, but someone who has the intelligence, the leisure, the interest, can download, that's the way of talking, download ideas from anywhere on the planet and apply them or share them within his or her own singular context. But because that's a reciprocal process, because public ideas, whether they come from America or from France or from England or from Korea or from Ethiopia or from Iraq or from Bolivia, they become, if they are public, they become available to everyone. That's just an illustration of what I call I wouldn't say an American, but a modern, partly American mind within the context of modern France. There are not many. Very difficult to be an American in modern day France. Yeah, that's just an illustration. So now, about cheese and logic. I have also documents about ethics, but I will wait a little bit later. So now I will talk about cheese and logic. I could have made, I intended to make this video in French, but actually I will make this in English. What is this? These are the categories. Do we see? Yeah. I will not comment systematically. I've done this in previous videos. Do we see? I reuse the same document. I modify slightly sometimes, but it's the same document. I will let's focus on this as of now. Yeah. Where is the cheese? Yeah. These categories. No, I will sit here. What are the categories? These are the building blocks of the mind, the elements of the mind, the determinations of thought that every thinking human uses consciously or unconsciously to mediate his relationship to the world. We spontaneously predicate categories to the world because to predicate means to attach a predicate to a subject, which is the philosophical definition of a judgment. Judgment doesn't mean it's good or bad. This is a particular type of judgment. Judgment means to subsume a singular individual, not in the sense of a human individual, but an individual a subject, an individual object, if you will. So here the subject is the object, but yes, a singular to subsume under a predicate, which is a universal determination. To say, this is a book. This book is written by Charles Murray. This is a judgment between that this singular book belongs to the category of books which have been written by Charles Murray. This is a singular of a particular class of books. Yeah. Okay. Or this commodity is a bottle of milk. No. This this commodity is a bottle of milk. So this singular object belongs to the category bottles of milk. The bottles of milk of all brands, all sizes, etc. This would be the particular class, and this singular commodity belongs to this particular class. Everything can be a judgment. This object is a pair of glass, etc., etc. This is a judgment in the formal sense. So to think means to judge. yeah, and to judge also means to think. So here are, in a simplified way, not all but most of the categories which are used by humans to think about the world, but these are also the determinations of reality. The categories are, to the mind and to reality, what the atoms are to the physical world. And I will illustrate, because it's very abstract, I will illustrate with concrete example. Concrete is a category we find here. I will illustrate, while talking about cheese, to make the categories intelligible, but the purpose is not to talk about cheese. The purpose is to help people think better, to think more clearly. I've understood recently, here I make a personal remark, that I've had great ideas over the years, but I have tended to not trust myself because I thought that it was not good enough. But actually I've come to a point where I've realized that I have to trust myself. In me I trust, says who? I don't know. I have to avoid the trap of being overconfident, but I have lived in a trap for many months, many years of being completely underconfident. And now I have to trust my own ideas, and one of the ideas that I had 3 years ago was to say that the world had lost its metaphysics. The metaphysics would be the determinations of thought. There are so many misunderstandings and conflicts within the world because people cannot communicate with one another because they do not use the proper categories. So I try to re-establish order. Here I will make a joke. I'm a German. I want to implement order, and I'm wearing a Hugo Boss sweatshirt. Oh, a German wearing Hugo Boss who talks about restoring order. We are screwed. I'm in a good mood. Enjoy while you can. Yeah. So yeah, I will illustrate the importance of the categories, which are how should I explain? They are within the mind of God. If I had to talk really in an ordinary language, the categories are the building blocks that God used to create reality. He didn't use atoms and molecules, although he did as well, but categories. Because the first level of reality, what is reality? That's a category. The first level of ontological reality is cognitive, it's mind, it's mental, it's thought, it's intellectual. Yeah. So, it has taken me 1 hour to prepare this video, plus buying the products that I'm about to show, but basically I've 1 hour of work, of preparatory work, and then I've taken a few notes, and then I will improvise. But yeah, UPS, Universal Particular Singular. I will illustrate to make UPS intelligible. Yeah. Also, I'm not a comedian. Sometimes I can be a clown. Not always funny, but I can be a clown. But I do not write. My jokes, but sometimes when I spontaneously think about jokes and when they are really good, I write them because they are worth sharing, maybe, or maybe not. I will let the people decide. The people who do not watch my videos. So yeah, here, UPS. The universal. The universal, when talking about cheese, would be milk. Milk, that's the universal. The universal particularizes itself. Namely, milk is a chemical composition. What is milk? It's a chemical product, a chemical substance produced by mammals. Yeah, I'm not an expert in chemistry, or organic chemistry, but that would be the definition. If one had to define milk rigorously, that would be within the realm of chemistry. So, the universal, milk, particularizes itself in various types, but these various types, precisely these are particularization. And I've taken a note, an example of a particularization of milk in the realm of edible food, because with milk one can make a poisonous brewage, one might say, but here in the realm of edible products. Cheese, that's one particularization of milk. With milk one can make cream, that's cream. That's different from cheese, but cheese and cream, they are different, but they share in common the fact that both are modes of existence of milk. Yeah. Another example, butter. Butter. Yeah, that's another particularization of milk. Milk powder. That's dried milk for babies. It's another particularization of milk. Here is, I've watched the translation, it's what is called, in English it's called fromage blanc, like in French, namely, literally that white cheese, but it's not translated literally. We call this in English, apparently, fromage blanc. So that's, it can be used with fruits or sugar or for desserts. It's not salt, there's no salt. It's not sweet either, but usually it's used, it can be used with sweet products. Yeah. I know that I wrote a hot chocolate, that's hot milk with chocolate basically. Ice cream, I have no ice cream here, but that's an example. And finally, yogurt, that's another particularization. So I will just summarize. With milk, that would be the universal, milk particularizes itself in various types of edible products: cream, cheese, yogurt, butter, dried milk, ice cream, etc., etc. And here, the logical aspect, these are my own documents. Each particularization contains within itself the determinations of the universal, namely, here, the determinations of the universal are the chemical composition. Within each dairy product, as they call this in English, there are the chemical composition of milk. They all share in common the fundamental determination. Fundamental means ground. The fundamental determination of the universal, namely, milk doesn't lose its properties in terms of chemistry. Some of them it does, but the fundamental properties, they are not lost whether milk becomes butter, cheese, or yogurt. There are other properties, namely milk as such loses a lot of its properties by being transformed into dry milk. For instance, the liquid aspect, by being turned into cheese, it loses its color, etc. The properties, they are lost, but the fundamental determinations, namely the chemical composition, I've watched this on Wikipedia. I think it's called casein. That's a coagulation of milk protein in cheese. That's casein. Yeah. So the fundamental determination, at least in the case of cheese, they are not lost. But just an illustration. And each singular piece of cheese or a slice of cheese is a singular object, a singular individual of a particular type. Here, these are various types, various particularizations of cheese, but here cheese is the particular as opposed to butter and yogurt. But cheese, if cheese is made the universal, the particulars are the various varieties, the various species, the various types of cheese. Yeah. So that's the illustration. Yeah. Now, I will keep, so that's just to illustrate, and this works for everything, but simply my purpose with these videos is just to help make intelligible determination of thoughts which are valid for everyone. Here I will make an enlightening remark, maybe. if God is the universal and God is the light, let us say, it means that every singular human, because the singular contains within itself the determination of the universal, every human has within himself, guess what? A piece of light. Yes. I hadn't planned making this joke. I mean, it's not a joke, but yeah. I will illustrate. Here I use my notes that I've written. This cheese, that's Emmental, I think that's a Swiss cheese. The holes within the cheese. This is an illustration of the fact that there is nothing within being. This piece of cheese is, but what is within it, there are holes. So there is nothing, that's the presence of nothing within being, and as the smart physicists, I mean, as all physicists know, the material world is mostly composed, or not composed, it mostly contains nothing. Mr. Krauss, but actually every physicist knows that the atoms, they are overwhelmingly made of nothing. They are empty, basically. Yeah, so that's just an illustration. Being and nothing. Werden means becoming. An illustration of becoming, when cheese is being melted, it loses its qualitative solid property and becomes liquid, or at least melted, that becomes, or simply when cheese is rotting, that's another way of becoming. Or when milk is turned into cream, that's another way of becoming, etc. Becoming, it's a universal. These are the poorest determination, they can be applied to anything. The duration of the video, the fact that I am talking, it's becoming, the video becomes. Hopefully it becomes interesting. I don't know. Yeah, also, sorry, in terms of UPS, another example, if milk is the universal, other particularization, here I have chosen just before to illustrate the various particularization of cheese by illustrating the various edible products, the dairy products which can be made with cheese. Another type of particularity would be the animal which produces the milk. Cow, goat, ewe, not you, but no, I don't want you to. Ewe, I don't know how you say it in English. EWE. I don't know how you pronounce this. And buffalo. These are 4 particular types of mammals which produce milk, which can be used to make cheese. Cow, goat, ewe, and buffalo. Yeah, that would be another classification. Then, I will not illustrate all the categories, but Bestimmtheit means determinacy. Determinacy means to answer the question, what is it? It means to qualify. What is cheese? I don't know the rigorous definition, but that's coagulated milk following a certain chemical process. What is milk? That's an organic product made by mammals. So to give the determinacy means to define, in a way. Actually not, because definition, we see definition, it's here, the logic of the concept, but basically the importance of the category is simply to use Bestimmtheit. It is very useful, because to determine what are you talking about, to answer the question what, is to give the determinacy. Then, reality. I illustrate. What is reality? Reality contains the 2 determinations of an sich and sein für anders, and in order for something to be real, it has to have the an sich, which means, translated literally, the in itself, and sein für anders literally means being for another. Here I will illustrate vegan cheese. That's not real cheese, because there is the sein für anders, namely, here I really simplify to the utmost, because it's if the German metaphysician could hear me, they would say, you are being so decadent. You sacrifice all form of rigor. What happened to you? Look how decadent you are becoming. You are forced to sacrifice rigor and systematicity to talk to these ordinary humans who otherwise don't understand anything. I'm with the side. I'm with the people. I'm on the side of the people. I make the complexity German metaphysics intelligible. So let us assume that an sich seit für uns mean inner and outer. It's much more complex, but let's assume. Vegan cheese is not real cheese because there's only the appearance of cheese, but there is not the in itself, which here would be casein, namely coagulated milk, which are chemical determination, namely in vegan cheese, there is no animal milk. That's the purpose of vegan cheese, but that's why it's not real cheese, because for cheese to be real, there has to be milk and the exterior of cheese, in this sense. This is not real cheese either, because there is milk, there is the Ansicht, but it's not cheese in the sense that the texture and the mode of production is different. That's butter. Yeah. Now I'll make my joke about butter. I thought about this. It's called le beurre président, which means president butter, and the joke is is it a good president? It's better than Joe Biden. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke for the Republicans. But also it's better than Monsieur Macron. But the French, they do not have a very good sense of humor when it comes to politics. I mean, they do, but this was a joke for the Americans. Yeah. This president is better than most presidents of most democratic regimes for inherent fundamental reasons. Yeah. Also, repulsion and attraction. Well, I will illustrate with French cheese this kind of cheese. It's not rotten, that's how the cheese is supposed to be, namely the holes are, it's mold, I've described, it's called mold, namely it's rotten, but it's purposeful. That's how the cheese is when it is well done. That the French cheeses, they have a reputation for being disgusting, not in terms of taste, but in terms of smell, or the very concept. One might say Zizek talks about this, like all the great products of French cuisine, there are some sort of accidents, champagne, rotten cheese, etc. Then it becomes famous. Yeah. So that's just to illustrate what is repulsive. These categories, attraction, repulsion, they are found at all levels of being, namely the electromagnetic, how should I explain it? Electromagnetism is determined by positive and negative charges. The reason why matter is stable at all levels are because the electrons and the protons, they balance one another, positive and negative charges. Yeah, so that's found at the basic or the fundamental level of physics, but it's found at all layers, namely in the animal realm. You find an attractive partner, you are attracted, you encounter a predator, you find this repulsive, not psychologically, but you are repelled. Yeah, that's basic animal behavior. But they are in a conceptual unity nonetheless, and one illustration would be French cheese in general, which is, yeah, it's repulsive in terms of smell and sometimes taste. I'm not a cheese eater. I'm here really the French, they are really weird. I'm with the side of the German Bratwurst, not the French cheese. Here, another joke that I thought about. The French, they are called the cheese-eating surrender monkeys. And here's my joke. I'm on the side of the Germans, so when the French surrender, for me that's not a problem. That's a joke, that's a joke. Yeah, but what is repulsive is also attractive. That's the example with French cheese, which has acquired a reputation for its sometimes dubious aspect, but people are attracted. And another example with Mr. Trump. Trump is repulsive because he's arrogant, he's boastful, he makes he makes trash talking, etc. But he attracts a lot of attention. It's a universal determination of psychology. People are attracted by what they find repulsive. The anti-racist, they keep talking about the racist, they find them repulsive, but the anti-racist activists, they keep talking about the racist all day long. They are attracted by what they find repulsive. Once you understand this, the solution is in the middle. not to be too excessive on one side or the other, which in the realm of cheese eating would be, let us eat American cheddar or English cheddar. That's not as repulsive. There are less taste. It's less in terms of smell and taste. It's less intense than French cheese, but it's more neutral. Yeah, that's an illustration. Then continuity and discretion, which are determination of quantity. Whatever is continuous can be discretely separated. Here I will illustrate very simply. This is a continuum. This is one here. Eins und viele, one and many. It's one piece of cheese, but it has many parts, one might say. It's a continuum, but it can be discretely separated. That's a discrete unit. To illustrate, the historical process is a continuum, and the various dates, the various historical events, these are discrete units. In order to understand the historical process, one has to have both aspects. Namely, one has to understand that, for example, this piece of cheese, it's not produced as such, it comes from a greater piece of cheese, which actually comes from a whole cheese. The truth is the whole, not the whole. Here's my English is limited. Not the whole of the cheese, but the totality. Yeah, that's an illustration. Continuity, discretion. Intensity and extension. Also about continuity and discretion, the Milky Way, let's talk about milk. The Milky Way, I already knew this basically, but I discovered this on Wikipedia. Namely, it's like a cloud. It's not a cloud. I don't know. Here my English is limited. It's like a milk wave in a way. But it looks like a continuum, but when looked at through the lens of a telescope, one can see the discrete units, which are the individual stars which compose the Milky Way. So continuity and discretion, it works at all levels, but here it's an optical illusion, an optical delusion, but that's an illustration. Intensity and extension. Yeah, here the example, the reputation of the French cheese is very intense. Therefore, it has become extended, and cheddar in the modern world, it's very extended, and the reason is because it's intense, not because the taste is intense, precisely that's the opposite, precisely because it satisfies, I guess, a basic human need, namely to be able to eat cheese without the intense character of some French cheese. So that's widespread because it's the reason why it's widespread. I don't know exactly, but it's precisely. It may be precisely because it's kind of dull and boring, which can be a good thing. Yeah. Also, in terms of continuity and discretion, here we have what we call, we don't see very well, but what we call Nutri-Score, which goes from A, B, C, D, E, which is a continuum of junk food aspect of fat and not fat and sugar, but the junk aspect of the food, the excesses of weight that, or the diet aspect of the food. It's found on many modern industrial products. Namely, it enables the consumer to judge whether or not the product is healthy, and that's a continuum. But the more fat it is, the lower the grade, and the more healthy it is, the higher. Closer to A and B, that's healthy. Closer to D and E, that's junk food in a way. Then we have quantitative verhältnis. Here, just an illustration. We find on most the products of industrial food, we find the proportion of fat, proteins, salt, vitamins, energy for 100 gram or a given specific quantitative amount. There is the proportion, the quantitative verhältnis, that's the proportion for 100 gram, which in English would be not pounds, but very annoying, these English people with their metric system. That's a joke. Yeah, that's a proportion, a quantitative number within a quantitative totality. For 100 gram of butter, there is 82 grams of fat, 82% of fat. Yeah, that's an illustration. So we find this at all layers of being. Here I take the example of milk products, but it can be found anywhere. Then, mass, measure. Do we see? Measure. Yeah. I take an example. This milk, or almost every milk in modern industrialized society, they have to be UHT, which means ultra high temperature. They have to be sterilized at a very high degree. It's between 135 and 150 Celsius degrees. They have to be boiled between 145 and 150 for between 3 and 5 seconds. And the measure is, if you heat the milk at 80 degrees or 90 degrees, that's not enough. So the quantitative change is indifferent. 80 degrees, 90 degrees, 100 degrees, 110, that's not enough. But when you trespass a certain quantitative amount, namely between 135 and 150, it is the proper measure in order to sterilize the milk and to kill off all the bacteria and to protect the milk. But then if you keep increasing the temperature, if you heat the milk at 1000 degrees, it vanishes probably. It's too hot. So the proper measure is, in the case of sterilization of milk, 135, 150. Below, that's not enough. Above, that's too much. It has to find a proper measure. Yeah. That's to illustrate the categories. Okay, maybe it will be 2 hours long, I don't know. I will not illustrate all the categories, but simply here in the logic of essence, identity, difference, diversity, comparison, equality, inequality. These pieces of cheese, they are different individually. They are different in terms of the particular type. This is not the same kind of cheese. Not here it's EU, EWE. Yeah, EU and cow. So this is not the same animal, the same type of animal. This is not the same type of cheese. So they are different. They are identical in the sense that they are all made of milk. They are all cheese, etc., etc. And when we compare, how are objects? How are they identical? How are they different? We compare. Namely, we predicate determinations of equality and inequality. And here, a very simple example is how are they equal in terms of taste, calories, maybe diet, is it healthy or not, or price. To compare, we spontaneously compare, but we compare by predicating equality or inequality. And when unequal objects are put into relationship, they are equalized. And when objects which are equal are compared, they are differentiated. That's the unity of both aspects. And here, when we compare, precisely, we need a comparison. When we compare two pieces of cheese, we compare in terms of cost per unit, or is it good for the diet, or what is the taste, etc. These are the comparisons. There has to be a third element, the price, the diet aspect, the taste, etc., which makes the comparison relevant. One would not compare cheese and a piece of glass, a pair of glasses, and if it does, it's what is the comparison? What is the common ground? Is it the price? Is it the utility? Is it? Yeah, it seems weird at first. They can be compared as commodities. It's more expensive than this. It's more useful than this, or not, depending. And if you're trying to make a hamburger, you'd better put cheddar in it than a pair of glasses. It depends on the context, but that's just to illustrate. Okay. Grund und Existenz. Grund, in English it's ground, and it gives the adjective fundamental. Whatever exists, there are various levels of existence. There is Dasein, it's the simplest level, and existence in this sense means that which comes out of the ground. It has a fundamental determination. It has been founded. The constitution, in any country, the constitution is the fundamental law, namely all the existing laws have to be in accordance with the fundamental principles of the constitution. If they are anti-constitutional, it means that they cannot exist, or the constitution has to be changed, but it means that they contradict the fundamental determination. That's the example in the realm of legislation. And here, in the realm of cheese, what is the ground of cheese? Why does cheese exist? Because there are milk animals, cows, goats, buffaloes, etc. Because of the division of labor, these are just examples, or because of the demand. If there were no not cause in the sense of cause and effect, but cows in the sense of cowboy. If there were no cow, there would be no yogurt. But one could say, if there was no division of labor, there would be no yogurt either. Or if there was no demand, like in some Asian countries, maybe they have cows, or maybe they don't, but there is no demand because the people they are allergic, or they simply don't like cheese, or they don't like milk, or they don't like butter. So in this sense, the market for cheese in Eastern Asian countries does not exist, or to a very limited extent, because the demand is not present. They could import cows and bring about the division of labor, but the people, they are not interested for socio-biological reasons. I'll talk about this later. Then, a thing and its property. We have etwas means something, and here we have das Ding, which means the thing and its property. And here the example is that a cheese, it's a thing and it has properties, namely the texture, the flavor or the taste, the smell, the color. These are the various properties. And when the conditions are changed, if it is melted, the texture will change, the taste will change, the smell will change, etc. The color might change, and each piece of cheese or each individual cheese is a thing with properties. And the thing consists in its properties. Then matter and form. The material aspect, the substratum, the substrate, the substance. Substance is a little bit later, but the material aspect, it takes various forms, and I know this, I checked this on the Wikipedia when I already knew this. Fromage in the French language, they do not call this cheese, but fromage. In German it's Käse, which has given cheese. They owe a lot to the German, the English, don't forget. But fromage in French comes from, I think, from fromaggio or formaggio, which is derived from Latin, which is the same root word which is given form. So cheese can adopt several forms, and here I have taken example. This cheese and this cheese, they are the same cheese, emmental, but here it's grated cheese. The form is different, it's grated, precisely. Here the same Parmigiano, that's Italian cheese, the form is like powder. It's a specific form. The matter is the same, but the form is different. Here as well, cheddar in this form, it's sliced cheddar. So the material aspect, which would be here the chemical composition of cheese, is identical, but the form can change. That's an illustration. It seems silly, but actually these are very profound philosophical questions. These are the kind of questions that Descartes, the French philosopher, asks himself in his metaphysical writings about candles. In which way is this and this, in which way are they identical? And how are they different? Because they are the same type of cheese, the same type of animal, the same mode of production. It's simply that here it has been cut it into small slices that we call grated cheese, but they are identical, but they are nonetheless different, etc., etc. They have the same matter, or they have the same content, but a different form. The law, the law would be the mode of, where is the law? The law would be, would be the mode of production, namely the know-how, how to produce a certain type of cheese. One has to follow a specific recipe, a specific formula, a specific know-how, as they call this. The mode of production. And finally, I can illustrate whole and parts. This individual piece of cheese is a whole, but it can be divided into parts, and each this was part of the whole, and it has become a part, but it is also a whole, and it can also be divided in parts. So that's just to illustrate that the whole consists in its parts. And then later we have the UPS. I've talked about this earlier, so I will not talk about all the categories. This is just an illustration. Yeah. Yeah. And here, just an example, in the realm of judgment, we have judgment of necessity, which means to judge by extracting the substance, the nature of an object. And here, to judge means, if I say, this is a piece of cheese, that this is a judgment, in the sense of piece of cheese would be the predicate and this singular object would be the subject, but to judge properly means to extract the proper category. And in the realm of cheese, that would be what is the type of cheese. An expert in cheese would be able to say, by looking at a cheese, or even without looking, just tasting the cheese, that's from Italy, that's Italian, that's Swiss, that's English, that's French, or that's German, etc., would be able to determine the nature, to say about any type of cheese, this is cheese. Well, that's good in the sense that to be able to differentiate butter and cheese and whatever else, I don't know, cream, or to be able to differentiate, that's the first moment. But to be able to judge adequately, to judge properly, means to be more specific, to extract the proper universality, which here would be the proper nature, etc., etc. That's what we call judgment, in the sense of being able to predicate the correct judgment. To say, this is cheese, that's correct, but to say, this is emmental, that's even better. And someone who is an expert would be able to taste and say, is it good or bad, what is the quality, not in a sense of to qualify, but the quality in the sense of good or bad. And here one has to be an expert. That's what we call critique, in a sense of a critique of movies, to be able to judge adequately. Here in the sense, it's judgment in ordinary sense, namely to critique by exerting an opinion, which is the result of education, in the sense of not formal education, the kind of education that they provide in the modern education system, but to be able to exert the adequate judgment, to exert taste. In aesthetics, that's how it works. Yeah. Okay. So now I will take a pause, drink a glass of water. I do not cut the video, but I just take a short pause because I still have to talk. And yeah. 1 hour and 8 minutes. I will skip this. I will use my other documents. I need a cleaning lady. Where are you, Stella? That's a joke, that's a joke. That's a joke, don't... but I've just... I take my glass of water. The purpose of these kind of videos is to help people think more clearly. Yeah. I've understood, here I make a brief remark, I've understood by being in the world, I'm always in the world, but in contact with ordinary people, singular individuals, empirical people, human beings, other persons, I've understood why my ideas have been completely unintelligible, because I have lived in a world of pure abstractions, but what is abstract is also concrete, but simply I've understood recently that I have to make a greater effort to make my ideas intelligible, and I have to sacrifice the rigorous aspect to connect with the people. I'm just like you, I make a very complex theoretical I have a very complex theoretical perspective on the most simple objects. Everyone does this, right? No? No, there are people starving on this planet. They would like you to shut up and to feed them with quality cheese instead of talking about cheese. Yeah, I know. By the way, I do not eat cheese. I have bought this for the purpose of making a lecture. Throwing away food is wrong, but here it's kind of the limit date has been. I will not get rid of this. Is still valid. But the others they are outdated in a sense, so I have to throw them away for avoiding poisoning, but otherwise I do not eat cheese. That's a personal comment, but I bought this for the purpose of these are bought locally. These are not local products, obviously this is not local, but I bought this locally for the sake of encouraging local businesses. And here a short remark. I guess we find this in most Western countries. On most products now there is a produced in whatever country. Here it's France, but probably made in Germany for the German, made in America, America first, buy American, etc., etc. That's one way of playing the patriotic card with the people. Your country is being completely screwed up, the educational system, the banking system, the population is being replaced, everything falls apart, but don't worry, if you buy the cheese that will make you fat, if you buy this because it's been made in your own patriotic country, you are a good patriot. That's the kind of nonsense that business companies use, and it works with the people. Yeah, that's modern patriotism. In the sense, I'm not a patriot. No, of any country, but of course it's good. It's good to produce locally on any country. If most countries produced most of their products locally, that would be better. There would be less pollution, more confidence in the producer. It would reduce local unemployment. So that's good. But to use patriotism. I mean that's very cunning, that's very smart, but that's not real patriotism. If you just buy local products, you're not a patriot. Or yeah, that's the first step maybe, but yeah. What do I want to say? Yeah, I had a good joke. I didn't think during this, but I have a good joke. I thought about the joke a couple of hours ago while I was preparing the video, so I'm not a comedian, but here is really a good joke. Imagine a dairy farm, and the cows are talking together while eating grass, and the farmer wants to milk them. There's a cow looking at a cow sitting or standing next to her. What does she say? You are my co-worker. My co-worker. That's a good joke. It doesn't work in French, nor in German. But in English it works. My accent probably is terrible, but I think it's a good joke. I'm not always in a good mood. Most of the time I'm in a terrible mood, but here enjoy my sense of humor, the few people who watch this. Yeah. So what is this? What is this document? that's the vision of nature, namely the spatial temporal world. All the categories, the general categories, which it begins by the order is geometry, relativity, quantum physics, mechanics, astronomy, cosmology, then from optics to meteorology, chemistry, thermodynamics, alchemy, magnetism, geology, physical geography, biology, ecology, paleontology, medicine. These are the fundamental, very simplified categories which structure that which we call nature, which actually is the spatial temporal world. And there's only one nature, because there's only one world, only one universe. Like there's only one set of categories. The previous that I've showed for almost an hour, they have been very simplified, but here is the physical world in which we live. This is how it is categorized. And I will use this to talk. So now I've illustrated the categories of cheese. Now, it will be shorter, but I will talk about cheese from an encyclopedic perspective. If I succeed in making this interesting, maybe that's the proof that I have talent, maybe. I illustrate what I've been working on, namely to make reality intelligible and to reinstate order. First in the mind, it begins with clarification of one's own mind. So previously these were the categories of the mind, here are the categories of nature, then I will show the categories of what I call Geist, which is society and the realm of institutions. Now I will talk with the article on Wikipedia. I use Wikipedia because I make them donations. I made hundreds of dollars, not dollars, hundreds of euros of donation to Wikipedia and encourage people to do so. That's great. That's a great idea. Free. It's not everything is perfect, but the idea to make knowledge universal, accessible, free, that's great. So as long as I can, I will make donations to Wikipedia to be thankful for this opportunity. So I have extracted the broadest categories of the articles about dairy products and cheese on Wikipedia, and the articles, they are pretty well done, but they are not rigorously organized, and here I will illustrate, so people are free to, if they are interested, they can look at... I'm not interested in cheese or milk or dairy products, I'm just interested in making the view of the totality intelligible, just to share the method of knowledge for the people who are interested. But if your highest interest in life is cheese, that's cheesy and there's a problem. But but that's just an illustration. So here, for instance, the category that we find about dairy products. So cows, goats, and ewes, and buffaloes, these are the various mammals that produce milk, which is used to make dairy products. So here, just to illustrate, that would be in the realm of zoology. So within the classification, that would be zoology. The lactose levels, they are partly chemical elements, but which impact physiology. So that's a mixture. That these are lactose. These are determinations of chemistry, but the way they impact the human body, the way that the human body digests, or even animals, the way they digest milk, or not cheese, because animals do not eat cheese, but except the surrender monkey from France. That's a joke. But the way milk or dairy products are digested, this belongs to physiology. Yeah. Then there is intolerance and health. There's a category, an article on the Wikipedia about dairy products about intolerance and health. This belongs to medicine. And then, so these are just the three determinations. And also nutrition and health, which belongs to the category of cheese. Nutrition and health would be medicine. So when we talk about cheese, just to illustrate, one has to first, logically, one has to first talk about the animals which produce cheese, which produce milk, the physiological reaction that it brings about in the human body, and the chemical reaction. So one might begin with the chemical composition of milk and cheese, the way it is produced by animals, the way it is digested and used by humans, and the way it impacts the health or the diet of humans. That would be a logical encyclopedic way of talking about cheese. Then one could talk about the physical properties of a piece of cheese. That would be quantum physics. What if I throw this into the air? At what speed does it fall to the ground? These are physical determination, the laws of gravitation. But it's not interesting as such, because here the fact that this is a piece of cheese is completely irrelevant. Here the determination would be physical object. So here, yeah, cheese as such, it becomes interesting on the level of chemistry, zoology, physiology, and medicine. Yeah. And now we'll talk about the spirit of cheese, the spiritual aspect. I just illustrate the way of talking about any kind of topic. I intend in the coming days to produce videos about food in general and alcohol also maybe. Do I have yeah, but here it's no, alcohol I don't think I have. I've gotten rid of. No, I do actually, yeah. So yeah, I intend to, but not in English, in French, but yeah. I will see, but it just will say. So here is the formal presentation of what I call Geist, which is spirit, which is the realm of institutions. It's a simplified view of the totality of the determinations which it begins with sociobiology. So sociobiology is the transition between the natural realm and the anthropological realm. And humans are first sociobiological creatures. As humans, as animals, they are zoological creatures and anatomical and physiological. But as humans, they begin, one might say, here I simplify, with sociobiology. Yeah, they are determined ethnically, sexually, physiognomically. They have a personality and talent. They are determined in terms of evolutionary psychology. Here, the light, it's psychiatry and psychoanalysis. These are the determination of psychology, intelligence, IQ, language, etc. This is the biological substratum of a society. This is the transition between the realm of pure biology and the realm of spirit as such. This is subjective spirit, namely human beings as partly determined by nature. And then, what we see here, these are the categories which shape, it's very simplified, but the conceptual structure of the institutions of a society. Okay, so here I will let this so we can see, and I will comment the spiritual aspect of cheese. Very briefly, the purpose is not, I'm not interested in this as well, but it's just to illustrate the method of knowledge. So, borrowing from Wikipedia. I take the structure of the articles from Wikipedia. They talk about first they begin by the introduction, they talk about the chemical aspect, then the texture, flavor, etc. So they talk about the chemical aspect, but then it begins with etymology. Where do we situate etymology? When we talk about etymology, namely the root of, we don't see but it's here, the root of words, it's in the realm of language. That's the determination of the mind, of the psyche. So if we talk about, here we have linguistics, so talking about the etymology of cheese, it would be here, namely in the continuity of the anthropological determination of man. It's a transition between the individual psychology and intelligence, that's language, and through the exchange of words and ideas, people unite to create and to stabilize and to maintain and to develop institutions. So yeah, the etymology of cheese, I will not make a lecture about this, but Käse in German, that Käse gave probably cheese, so that's a proof. It's not, there's no need to prove, but that's a reminder for the English. Don't forget your Germanic roots. Also then, in the Wikipedia article, in the structure of the article, they talk about history. History is here. It's tied with diplomacy, military, etc. It's a byproduct of politics and the state as such. History is the interaction between the various states, or between the various human groups organized in societies with institution or not. When the Europeans discovered the New World, they were settlers or colonists, but the societies that they encountered, these were not state organized societies. These were primitive societies. Here it's not derogatory. It can be derogatory, but it's not derogatory in the sense a primitive society is a society which has not organized itself in impersonal institutions. The Germanic tribes at the end of the Roman Empire, when they were in conflict with the Roman Empire between the 1st and the 5th century AD and even until the conquest of Charlemagne, most of the Germanic tribes, they were not organized in states as such. In this sense, they were primitive, but it doesn't mean barbaric. It can be barbarian, but not barbaric. They can be very civilized in the sense of having a high morality, a high level of culture, even without having impersonal institutions. In tribal societies, they are not statist as such. Not all of them. So history, yeah, about cheese, of course, they talk about European colonialism and European imperialism, which brought cheese to the world. Why do people hate Europeans? We brought cheddar to America. Everything is forgiven. No, it turned us into obese people. No, we don't forgive you imperialism because we... But what about the cheese on the tacos or Mexican dishes? No, that's not enough. What do you want more? Yeah, of course, they talk about European imperialism. Then they talk about production. The production that belongs to economics and sociology in the sense of the division of labor. Here they are tied together in the sense that the modes of production, division of labor, these are economic and sociological together. That's why it's not very rigorous. It's just to clarify. Human beings, usually grouped in families, not always, but in modern societies. Presently, in modern society, these are dismantled families. But in traditional modern societies, these are families gathered together around institutions. And one of the institutions as such is the economic sphere. And here, if we talk about cheese, the modes of production, cheese is being produced by people who work in factories. It can be industrial production, it can be crafts-made production, etc., etc. They talk about the carbon footprint of cheese production and consumption. So that would be, strictly speaking, the carbon footprint is a determination of nature. That these are chemical productions in the atmosphere, so that it belongs to chemistry, but it's also a byproduct of economics. And this would be tied with NGOs, lobbies, and globalism in the sense that ecological lobbies, for instance. And also to ethics, because in the modern, predominantly European societies, European here means white, societies predominantly populated by Europeans, the carbon footprint is a moral weapon in the social struggle for status to accuse the others of another political party. Oh, you pollute the planet, that's the way of gaining status and prestige, because it's a means of saying I am more virtuous than you because I consume less polluting products. That's a tool of social struggle for status. Then they talk about processing. The same, it belongs to economics and modes of production. The various types of cheese. Here, it's partly logical, but it's also partly, I would say, cultural and economic. Only specialists in cheese production know how to classify. It partly belongs to the culture of a people. In a sense, of course, it's a piece of cheese is an economic product, but it's also cultural in a sense that it's the product, in a historical perspective, of hundreds and thousands of years of development, etc. Then they talk about cooking and eating. It's partly cultural. It's also partly medicine, so it belongs to nature, but here it would be cultural. Then they talk about cultural attitudes, and they say, of course, that it can be empirically, anyone can notice that in Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia, the consumption of cheese is very, very restricted. And here, after 1 hour and 30 minutes of videos, the reason they call this cultural, that's not true. The reason is socio-biological. This book doesn't talk about this, but this is an illustration of a good American book by Charles Murray, Human Diversity, The Biology of Gender, Race and Class, and another book which is very moderate, scientific, rigorous, Luigi Cavalli Sforza and Luca Cavalli Sforza, The History and Geography of Human Genes. The reason why cheese or milk or dairy products are not heavily consumed in some parts of the world, like Southeast and Northeast Asia, it's not cultural, it partly is, but it's derived from biology, namely it's because there are physiological and ethnic differences between human groups, and in the historical perspective, most Eastern Asians have not developed in an environment which has enabled them to digest dairy products. I don't know the historical and socio-biological perspective, but basically the reason why cheese is not being consumed is because people do not tolerate, not in terms of morality, in terms of the digestion, for socio-biological reasons. And that's one of the illustration of the advent of the internet. This kind of knowledge, here I promote very moderate books, is made available, and if anyone wants to understand, if anyone wants to start a business, I will make a dairy product shopkeeper. I will be a dairy product shopkeeper. I will start selling cheese and milk and cream and yogurt in Chinatown. You will not have a lot of success for socio-biological reasons. That's the unity between economics and socio-biology. That's why stupid anti-racism is really stupid, because it prevents people from understanding reality. It's not being racist to say that Asians usually they struggle to digest milk, because historically in the socio-biological, in the Darwinian perspective, they have not been used to having domesticated milk animals, etc., etc. Then they talk about expressions. Again, it belongs to the realm of language. They talk about the big cheese. That's the video game Resident Evil 4. The big cheese. Yeah, it means an important person. Then they talk about consumption patterns. It's a tie of economics, the division of labor, the level of prosperity, because in the perspective, in a global perspective, having access to dairy products, it can be considered a luxury. Not everyone on this planet have access to decent amount of food, and food with enough calories and enough fat in the good sense, because an excess of fat can bring about obesity and weight problems, etc., but not enough can bring about serious health problems. So having access to there are presidents who do more for the economic well-being of their population than others. If people had more of this president and less of the socialist presidents, they would be in a better physical shape. So, the consumption patterns, they are a mixture of economics, sociology, the division of labor, and the anthropological and sociobiological determinations, and the two are connected. This is what I've just said. Then they talk about avoidance on principles. That would be a mixture of religion and ethics. There are people who do not eat milk products out of religious recommendations, the Jews, the Muslims, depending on the circumstances, or the vegan. Veganism is not a religion, but it's an ethical standard of behavior. And there are people who refuse to consume cheese or milk or yogurt or ice cream out of moral principles. I belong to this category of people. So it's not a crime for me to eat a little bit of cheese, but I no longer consume cheese. I haven't for many months, with a few exceptions. But because for ecological reasons, the carbon footprint, and also for me that's for economic reason. It brings about pollution. It brings about plastic and trash. It brings about obesity. And in a socialist system, when people become obese, who pays for their cure? The taxpayer. So in a society where people eat trash food, junk food, garbage food, and they become fat or they become unhealthy, if the economy is socialized, it's the taxpayer who has to work and pay for the medicine provided to others who have had an irresponsible behavior. So that's my problem with eating cheese. I don't care what people eat in terms of cheese or dairy products. If it can make them healthy, that's good for them. And it's better to eat cheese than to starve to death, one might say. But if people become excessive and if they become fat, and then the taxpayer, the worker, has to compensate by his own labor and to be exploited by the state to compensate the excesses, that's morally wrong. Here the Americans, the good Americans, all the Americans are good, of course they are, most of them. But the good Americans, the libertarians, the smart people, that's my problem. That's my ethical reason for not consuming cheese. So that's just an illustration of how to talk about any topic. And here I have not mentioned all the aspects. But to talk about any topic, one has to see the view of the totality. And here, what I've done for about 1 hour, how long now? 1 hour and 30 minutes, without the interrupt for more than 1 hour, the philosophy of cheese. The logical, natural, and spiritual aspect. That's just the formal method. That's what I could say. Now I will conclude with my new documents that I've been working on. A little bit of virtue signaling. I introduced my personal lifestyle over the past few weeks and past few months. This is my personal diet, or lack thereof, one might say. Do we see? I do not consume soft drinks, I do not eat fast food, I do not smoke cigarettes, I do not drink alcohol. A tiny slight exception just for once or a couple of times for German beer might be an exception for me. I do not watch pornography, I don't do drugs, I do not gamble with money, I have no TV, I haven't watched TV for more than 10 years now, I do not play video games, I do not go to the cinema, I do not buy newspapers, not because I'm not interested in the news, but because the paper is polluting. I do not watch sports entertainment. I have no jewelry or luxury, no casual sex either. So I have given up on all these, I might call these sins or addictions. I do not contribute to any of this through my money, through my activity, through my focus. This does not exist in my life any longer, except I can watch sometimes videos which talk about this topic, but simply I do not contribute economically to any of these economic products. It reduces the pollution, it reduces the economic activity, and it saves a lot of time. It's healthier, and it enables me to be more focused, to have more time to work, etc. That's the simple way. That's what I have given up on over the years. I was not addicted to all of this, but that's what I've given up on. At the first level, the easy level, here it's a little bit more difficult, maybe. That's my personal lifestyle over the recent weeks and months. I don't use any washing machine. No tumble dryer, no iron to how do you call this, to the clothes, to make the clothes. My English isn't good enough. I don't know how do you call this. No iron. I do not buy fashion clothes. I have no dishwasher. I use the least amount of wrapping or packaging as I can. Here, that's an exception for the sake of making a lecture, but I will not buy this kind of stuff any longer. I try to reduce planned obsolescence. I mean, I reduce as much as I can the buying the objects which are designed to break down. I try to reduce as much as I can my level of electricity, oil, and gas consumption. I use no hairdryer. I do not go to the hairdresser. I cut my hair myself. And I try to diminish as much as I can the level of fat, sugar, and industrial food that I consume. One of the consequences is that I do not need diet pills. I do not need to go to the gym or to do bodybuilding. I can't anyway, but I don't. So I do not participate in any of this. I have a very simple lifestyle, which reduces the pollution, the transportation, the consumption, and if as many people as possible did this, the economy would falter and would decline. But the question is it what kind of society is it when people are so dependent on such a vast amount of things which at first it seemed to be a benefit in terms of time, sparing time, and etc. But in the grand scheme of things, when I say it's destructive for the planet, it's destructive for the level of independence and autonomy of the people, and and here are more positive actions that I've been consistently or constantly taking over the past few weeks and months, and that I intend to keep applying. Here, that's my personal diet. When I say I eat overwhelmingly raw fruits and raw vegetables, plus bread, oil, and salt. I have a very simple diet. I make a few exceptions sometimes, but I eat overwhelmingly raw fruits and vegetables. So I have a very minimalist diet. I use organic hygiene products. I have given away most of my clothes. I encourage local businesses. I make supplies every day. I reduce the trash. I work minimum 14 hours each day, sometimes more, 7 days a week. But what I call work, it includes doing introspection and taking care of my home tasks. That's not really work in a sense of how should I explain it? It's not a work in a sense of blue collar or even white collar, but it's part of being dedicated to my being focused and being dedicated to my task in a way. So I think about my job in a way, which is being a philosopher and a theologian, 14 to 16 hours a day. And when I take leisure, this consists in reading books that I use for my lectures or for my personal improvement, which help me become smarter and more wiser sometimes. I take only cold showers. I do not take bath and I do not take hot showers. So I reduce my energy level and my consumption of water. I urinate. I've started this a few days ago. I urinate in the shower. I do not use the flush. I do not flush the toilet when I have to urinate. I urinate in the shower. It reduces the consumption of water. I pick up the trash in the street when I go out, when I walk outside, usually 1 or 2 hours a day. I do not do this systematically, but I pick up the cigarette butts, the paper, the plastic that I find on my way out. Every day I've been doing this consistently for the past few weeks, consistently, so I freely clean up the street of wherever I walk. I practice minimalism. I have gotten rid of a tremendous amount of useless objects. I have given away books, hundreds of books, good books, and I keep buying books at the local bookstore and giving them for free as donations to help make people living in my surroundings that I do not know, but to make them smarter and to encourage them to read and to encourage cooperation. I make donations in a form of food stamps. I give money to Wikipedia and to the Ron Paul Institute for peace and prosperity, and I practice introspection every day, mostly by watching the channel Psych2Go. This has been my personal lifestyle. I have rigorously, not perfectly, but rigorously followed this line of behavior for the past few weeks and few months, more or less consciously, but it's becoming more and more conscious. And that's why I reduce my standards of living. I still need and I still want an internet connection, a camera, electricity, running water, etc., etc. I still have hundreds of books around me, but I reduce my level of consumption to really a minimum level, because I will conclude with this. That's a sentence that I've been saying to myself. He who is willing to give up liberty or to renounce liberty for comfort deserves neither liberty nor comfort. So I've been willingly giving up on my levels of comfort to regain more autonomy, more independence, and eventually gain more liberty. And yeah, as long as I publish videos in English or in French, I will use my documents and I will keep working and improving myself. Yeah. Yeah. I will stop the video here. I will not publish the video in the coming hours because I have still work to do, but I will keep the video and I will publish this when I think it's the proper moment. Yeah. I will conclude by saying what I said probably at the beginning. I know that I improve every waking hour, every day. So by the time that this video will have been published, or by the time that people will have watched this video, even if it has been published for a long time, I don't know, but I will have improved a lot. Yeah, but here it was an partly improvised, partly structured, partly ordered, but nonetheless spontaneous lecture. It's not really a lecture on the logic of cheese. And I will call this a cheesy lecture on logic. I can be quite good with the English language.